welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, how dare you, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also below this video there is a link to get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. Now we are joined by Sleeping Warrior, 10th Man, Neil, the Adam Meakin, Arwin, and a whole bunch of people in Discord. So welcome one and all.
Hello, hello.
Hey.
Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Yes.
Greetings
Hello,
to
hello.
all.
Again, I have attempted to set the chat to be public today. I've labelled it as public chant, so I'm hoping that we'll actually have a proper public chat today. If not, I can't figure out how to make it work, because I've unchecked it, I've made sure it's all correctly assigned before I set up the show, so we should be able to have public chat today, or public chant as I like to call it. Anyway, we'll kick off with any... Go on.
I'm just cheering the fact that we can have a public chat. Woo!
Yeah, well, maybe. I don't know. It hasn't worked the last two times I've attempted to do it, so we'll see. Anyway, any evidence of a physical geometric sphere-edge horizon, formerly known as the curve of the Earth?
No.
Bottom-up extraction.
No. But I did give a nice Black Swan rendition on Sanfu yesterday, so that should go out just pointing out there is no geometricness. Quite a bit of fun yesterday. It's amazing, Neil. Even folks there, Nathan, I should say, sorry, over there hadn't heard of it on our side, so it wasn't understood.
No way. How is that possible?
You're so isolated.
What?
The world doesn't revolve around us, okay?
No, but obviously...
No,
Well, I
it's
think
engineering.
I think it's important to actually consider the fact that a lot of people think that boats go over a horizon, right? So maybe we should consider the fact that they've confused a lot of different things. Maybe. Now, a lot of those different things could be refraction, diffraction limits, a whole bunch of different issues. But they do confuse all of it and above, absolutely.
That's correct. There's a whole list of things that can cause what is described as bottom-up obstruction at the horizon. But the most important detail here is to note that the horizon is not a physical location. It's not a geometric sphere edge.
Absolutely.
It needs to be if you're going to
Well,
assert
that's
Earth
the
curve, though.
problem. Yeah.
It needs to be. It isn't.
If you're going to assign a geometry to this location from which boats physically disappear from, that's going to be an issue, because I don't even feel like I have to make this argument. Nobody here has to actually make that argument. It's one of their arguments, actually.
What argument?
Until they show up and make it. Yeah.
Make what
I
argument?
was over in Miggy's 24/7 Discord server yesterday, and I was having this conversation about the refraction of the horizon, the Black Swan with a blurther, and he didn't want to commit. He came in and criticised that we didn't have refraction considered when we were discussing about the Black Swan and the distances and all that. And I said, okay, let's deal with the refraction directly. I said, you can have as much refraction as you want. You can make it into a concave Earth if you want. I said, now we've dealt with refraction. What's the effect of that with respect to what we see? And he wouldn't concede that the horizon was optical, right? He would not concede it. He insisted it was geometric. And I said, but you've just asked us to take into account refraction. So when we do that, now you're presented with the horizon now that needs to be described. And I said, and the only way we can describe it is subject to refraction. It's now optical. Do you agree? And he didn't want to do it. He actually said to me, well, if I do, what does that mean? And I'm like, well, it means that the horizon no longer is the leading edge of a sphere. And he couldn't do it. So even though he wanted to correct for refraction, he couldn't make the concession that the horizon now is an optical phenomena. He just couldn't do it.
Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety? Also, shout out to Alexander for hitting the super chat. It is members only. Every time I uncheck the box, it just checks it again. So I don't know.
One moment, please, Nathan. Anthony, he couldn't or wouldn't do it?
He wouldn't. He couldn't and wouldn't.
No, he could. He just wouldn't.
Again,
it was both.
We discussed this in the pre-show, right? To accept the Black Swan argument or to understand the Black Swan argument is to relinquish the geometric horizon. And the geometric horizon's Earth curve. As soon as you refract the horizon, it's no longer geometric. We only have one horizon. And the horizon in the geometric Earth curve model is physical and geometric. It is their tangent point. Well, a tangent point requires a straight line to the edge of that sphere. That edge of the sphere is known as the tangent point, and the line to it is straight. Now, if you bend that line, you haven't got any geometry to perform, especially as your R value you're assuming in the geometry you do perform when you claim that the boats and buildings are blocked by the physical geometric horizon is based on an R value debunked because it's derived from a physical horizon. So you've got to have a physical horizon to assert that it's blocking boats and buildings. It's geometric. That's your claim. So to bend the horizon, bend the tangent, any of those things make it non-geometric, destroying your claim of geometry.
Yeah, I was there yesterday. He may as well have sang, I can do anything for love, but I won't do that.
Yeah, I can do
'Cause
anything
he
for my
was
ball,
squirming,
but I
man.
won't relinquish the horizon being the leading edge of a sphere.
Yeah, because to do
Goes
so
back
is
to
to
what
relinquish his fundy belief.
It goes back to what Nathan always says when he says, like, oh, do you know what? I've just lost it. Sorry, carry on.
But that's just as big a win, isn't it? If you won't relinquish it, then it's a geometric edge. That's it.
Well, do you know what, Adam? It would have been a brilliant win, but for the fact I got rumpused by my own side, and my point got totally destroyed by my own side. So yes, it would have been a brilliant win, but thanks to whoever it was that spoke over me, complaining that I was speaking over him whilst midway through my own conversation, my point got totally ruined. So shout out to that guy on our side that did that.
Don't you love that?
I don't blame him though, to be honest though, because it's like the Royal Rumble, isn't it? Like once you get a blurther in and they start talking, and you know that they're cornered, and you can sense their death, it becomes like 15 wrestlers all with the one guy in the middle that's getting pummeled, and that is what happened.
It's like here, isn't it?
It was
Nathan
kind of
was on
uncharacteristic,
ropes
you know. I didn't understand. Like it never happens that way, especially with that guy. You know, that's like, damn. Maybe it was just a bad moment. Maybe he's tired of getting cut off. I don't know.
Move on, maybe. Let's move on.
Well, now you know why cars only have one steering wheel.
No,
True.
there's better questions here.
Say again, Sin Cleanser.
I just think there's better questions we could probably move on to resonating on
What's,
this.
what's wrong with this one?
No,
I
ask
don't
his
know
question
anybody
again. I
that
think,
has an
10th, I think you
explanation
misheard him.
that we
Ask your
haven't
question
heard.
again.
Trying to. Everyone shut up. Go ahead, Sin Cleanser. Loud and clear. You're mumbling a little bit. Sorry.
Well, what I was saying is I don't think there's an explanation that we haven't already heard already.
Yeah, and in the case of the Black Swan argument, the explanations we received debunk the model even more.
Right. I think there's what I'm saying is that I think there's much more fun arguments, which I think are going to come next.
Like what?
Yeah, I was going to say, like what?
Well, you have to ask the next question.
Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
No chance. Not a chance.
Wait a
Actually,
minute, I've
nothing.
heard that before.
Think
I've
about
heard
it.
that before. All those arguments have been said before. We need better questions.
Well, no,
Yeah,
because
that's
this one is something you can resonate on actually for a while. Because if you think that there's an axial tilt to the Earth, you're giving it a direction from which stars rotate, and it's a star rotation question at its core because this has a lot of implications that I don't think can be verified. No chance.
Can we move on? This
So
is a boring question.
Well, yeah, the details of these questions cannot be answered. I don't think. No chance.
Okay.
I've heard this before.
you
Too many
think?
times. Yeah,
Does
too many
everyone-
times. It's boring. Let's move on. Let's get something more exciting.
Well, okay. God, no need.
Let's move on then. Yes.
Okay, does everyone understand the fundamental principle that must be assumed in order for any of these star claims to actually pad out as a globe claim in the first instance? Does everyone understand what has to be assumed first?
Yes.
They
we
use a
all do.
lot of these star claims. That's the problem.
The
Yeah,
We
radius.
need to address.
Yeah, we know that, but I'm saying,
Right.
do you understand what fundamentally undoes them immediately in all instances? What is it that they are assuming? Should be obvious because it's the same thing every single time they try and prove the globe.
Constantly
The radius.
assuming R.
They assume that you're on a sphere in the first instance. In other words, any claim to be demonstration of a, I don't know, star movement of some description will, for example, start with you moving to the southern hemisphere. So they're saying I move out towards the horizon, and during the process of moving to the horizon with the stars always above my head, when I arrive at my destination, that which was previously above my head is now below my feet, and I'm antipodal from where I began. Then I'm going to make my example about what the stars do above my head, assuming that where I stood in the first instance, the stars I'm now looking at were previously below my feet. But that's the fundamental premise that they have to assume in the very first instance. Now, normally, the trigger word that you'll hear to know that they're doing this is the word hemisphere. How do you explain XYZ in the northern hemisphere? Well, hemisphere begs the question.
Because they forget one other part, which is the axial rotation, which they haven't addressed. They just say the Earth is spinning, but they never account for why it's tilted. That's a weird part.
Well, that
From what I
tilting and rotating is all assumed in the first instance. So you're going to try and give your axial tilt explanation,
Well,
burden of
that's what they
proof
say,
reversal
the
fallacy for the
tilt,
flat earther
right?
by asking him to explain how it works. But generally speaking, more often than not in the first opening breath, they'll drop that in, that it's being assumed to be taking place on a sphere, and then they'll just reverse the burden of proof and ask you how you explain it.
Right. Yeah. They'll drop the tilt in. What I'm saying is that they'll sneak that in every different way they can. They sneak the tilt in. You know, axial
Just the
rotation.
tilt.
They just the
But
tilt.
I'm saying the tilt's
Just
the last
the
of your
axial
problems, because
rotation.
the tilt of what? Well, the tilt of the north and south
I
hemisphere.
don't know. I don't know where they get it from, to be
Yeah,
honest.
that's what I'm telling you. So they're assuming the tilt based on the assumption of a north and south hemisphere. And then, surplus to that, they've got a tilt. But the overriding assumption is that we've got antipodal star rotations or antipodal positioning when making the observation. That's the first assumption. The tilt comes after.
That's the problem I have is their tilt. Where did they get that idea from?
From assuming
Because that would have a lot of different implications. Come on. That would have a whole bunch of different worldviews.
That's
altogether.
that's like an argument for the gas gradient and gas pressure out of container.
Kinda, yeah. First, you've got to
They got
prove the
Tilt
sphere
is a
bit.
huge issue. Sorry.
They
The
got
tilt
the
is a
tilt.
big problem for me.
They have the tilt because that's their answer for the seasons.
Well, the seasons and the reason that the ecliptic doesn't, well, the sun's path doesn't go in a straight circle around the ball. It's tilted as well, doesn't it? So that has to match up. So the only way to get that to match up onto a ball is to tilt the ball.
Exactly. That's
No,
where the
actually-
problems come
actually-
into the math.
Actually, the sun, the Earth, they have, what's it called? Let me get it and I'll come back with it. They do have the sun going, the Earth going around the sun, and the Earth is tilted in their diagrams. So it's not exactly at the same equator line of the Earth that they
Oh,
have in
God.
the presupposed model.
Why are we doing this? So, yes, they assume orbits also. That's nice. Yes, they assume orbits. And they assume a spherical surface. And once they've assumed those two things, they then tilt the ball to right or wrong in the maths. But ultimately, it all starts by assuming North and South Hemisphere and you want a ball.
They then assume that all these things that you're looking at in the stars in relation to it are actually a representation of the movement of the Earth.
Yeah.
Another assumption.
Yeah, they're apparent deflections, i.e. Coriolis deflections, observed from you turning underneath them. Yes, that's correct. But that's just another assumption, again, based on you being on a sphere that's spinning.
Apparent deflections that we never see, right?
Well, they claim they see them in the stars, and the result of it being not just the stars moving, which they apparently do. You only have to look at them, right? But they attach a cause to that, and the cause is that it's not actually them moving, it's us. It's Earth turning underneath, a Coriolis deviation. But that's something they can actually show you as a deviation, and then they imply that that's the resultant effect is bore out in things like gyros and snipers, bullets, and footballs and pendulums.
Yeah,
So they've
but
got
we
the
don't
same
see
effect.
that on Earth.
Yeah, that's on Earth. So they're saying the same effect occurs.
Well, that's ridiculous.
Well, you'd
Well,
actually
that's
have
where I'm
to
saying all the problems start from, right?
Well,
The
you'd have to
problem is with the axial rotation idea that they came up with. Where did they get that from? How did they prove that? Where's this? Who
Well, they
gave
got it
them
from the
this
stars
idea?
rotating in the sky, don't they? It came from the epistemological question of, is it the stars rotating or is it us? That's where it came from.
But,
Nathan, go to Master B.
I
I got it there.
So for it to be rotating around us, of course, means the old Hubble conundrum, which is to place the Earth at the centre of any universe, even their spacey universe. It places us at the centre, which is theologically a problem for them.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, I've got you.
Nathan, I'm sending you several pictures. You can just go through it. Adam can comment. Adam, can you see the pictures while I keep sending some more?
Got the Earth orbit one first. Is that correct?
Yeah, this is what they're saying. Well, I'm still sending you pictures. I'm trying to concentrate here. So they're saying that there's this path, and the Earth's tilted on the path, but it's keeping it. And as you go through the slides, you're going to see more
I've
reveal
got them
itself
up,
of how
Tim.
they. Okay, perfect.
got the first
Adam,
one
go ahead and
to
take
take
over
over.
because. Yeah,
Well,
Adam,
yeah,
you know
if
more about
do you want
this
to take
than I do.
over,
I'm just
Adam, so
showing
that
pictures.
everyone can see him in the hangout?
Oh,
Okay, Adam's got him presented now, so you can see him in the hangout.
I'll just scroll through them, but I think they're fairly self-explanatory, aren't they? You can see where the plane would have been and where it would be, and the need for it. So for me, that aligns up the sun's path. That's the point of it. It's you have the ball spinning, not on its 20, not off 23. Then your path of the sun across the equator doesn't match up. So it has to do that so that it aligns on the ball. So the map they've overlaid on the ball didn't quite work, does it? If you just have it, so you've got to have it spinning at a slightly different point for the path of the sun to match. It's my understanding.
Well, this is their ecliptic, right?
Yeah.
Now they have the other planets in their model slightly off by no more than 5%, but the Earth is right on this. I'll see if I can get that one.
Can you mute Anthony? You can hear your dog barking and stuff.
Get lost. That was actually Mr. Meakin.
Yeah, that could have been Phoebe again. There's been a squirrel spotted in the garden, so I'll.
There's a burglar. There's a burglar. I must sound the alarm. I resemble that insult, Nathan.
Don't resemble my insult. Just stick yourself on mute so you don't have to hear Adam's dog. What's wrong with you?
So I can filter out Adam's dog by being on mute. Doesn't quite work like that, but if you think it works like that, then that's okay.
An
But
emergent.
if it
Hold on,
doesn't
I've got a
work like
joke.
that, Nate-
Don't ruin it. It's an emergent dog bark.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if it could work like that, then that would be okay, wouldn't it?
Adam, you can go to the last slide. That I just
Right,
sent.
okay,
This is
back
their
on track.
side view. Now, this is their model. This is their side view. Moon's off by 5%, they said. And the other planets in their model, you can see how it relates to the ecliptic with the Earth and the Sun. That's it.
Didn't you have a point further to that, though, 10th?
I think it was on the first one. That guy asked a question. I can't remember what it was. Now I forgot it.
About the tilt.
Yes, I said that was one of their explanations for it is the cause of the seasons.
Well, it is the begging the question fallacy of orbits and spherical Earth, though, isn't it? That's what it is.
Correct.
Exactly. The whole question of the seasons and the rotation of the sun, if there is such a thing, the whole problem resorts to how do you know what's happening at all? How do they prove it? How can we laugh at them? They don't know. They don't have a clue. No chance.
Well,
All we have to do is
Contradictory
listen
again,
to 'em.
isn't it? Because they make the presupposition that the seasons are as caused by, first of all, that tint, but primarily the causation of the seasons is the fact that we're on an elliptical path around the sun. So as the energy absorbed by the Earth, which is variant, but this is where it again is completely contradictory, even in its own model, because for us, we're a lot nearer to the sun in our winter.
I just put up the last slide. If you can go to that one, the double one.
So just to summarise while that slide's coming up from Adam, they assume orbits. That's right.
Yes.
May want to blow this up, Adam.
But look, the point I'm making is even when we allow things, if you allow the assumption of the orbit, then these orbital paths, the energy absorption, i.e. the seasons we feel, are based on distance to the sun, i.e. how far near we are to the heat and light source. But even in that model, it's contradictory with the fact that it's an elliptical orbit and therefore would be subject to different distances and different energy absorptions.
Adam, can you blow up the slide a little bit? Just so
No.
I can. I've done it for the audience.
All right. All right. So the top slide there, how's the sun's rays coming?
Parallel.
Okay. You see what they're doing is they're trying to force an Earth to fit what the sky and stars are obviously doing. And they need a sphere. So they try to force the Earth to be a sphere to somehow compensate for how the stars behave. Now, we know there's no Earth-based Coriolis. Okay, we know that sun rays don't come in parallel. And everything is based on the sun rays coming parallel, even with this ecliptic. In order for them to get their eclipses, everything. So since our own eyes and divergent rays of the sun prove that their model is wrong right there. So instead of looking at the stars and saying, oh, how do I make a sphere work with that? Why don't you just look at the stars and realize you're not on a sphere, you're on a plane, because of the fact how the sun's rays come, a sextant wouldn't work on a curved surface. And the black swan argument doesn't show a curved surface. I mean, every housekeeping question can come in right now and destroy what they're trying to do with the ecliptic.
Okie. Read out a quick super chat from Godzilla37, who says, they can see Mercury in the night sky, but they can't parallax in the night sky. Cogdis is the strongest force on Earth. Thank you very much
Yeah,
for the super chat.
Cogdis is the strongest force, yeah.
Any evidence
Well,
that
does
distance
it
to the
go-
sun?
does
Not
go
a force,
down?
but you can think of it as one.
Does it go down, go boom, boom?
We can
Yeah,
calculate Cogdis effect, can't we? The more they fight about their position and the more personal it becomes because you don't understand or whatever slurs they use, then that's a measure of how much Cogdis they're in, and therefore it's a force. Just calculate it into existence.
There's so much Cogdis that Rumpus came on a few shows ago and said the sun's rays do not hit Earth parallel.
Yeah,
But
that's
he actually also said that they hit it all at all different angles. So therefore,
that reminds me.
everything's illuminated.
That reminds me. Yeah, do you want to bring up that picture, 10th, or stick
Which
it in
one?
Skype of the the spot, the hot spot?
Oh, yeah, I'll do that.
Perfect. I say it's visually obvious. Yeah, if you post it at the end of that last stream, I'll stick it up as the last slide for the audience. Any evidence of the distance to the sun while we're waiting?
No, there is no distance to the sun because they need to know angular size components. They can't get the distance unless they know the actual size. They can't get the actual size unless they know the distance. So they're in a circulatory conflict where they can't establish any part of their distance to the sun, but they can assume it using radar pings that they send off to Bob from JPL, where he then says that he believed that he was seeing them and therefore everybody accepted it. So no is the short answer, because they have a circular contradiction that they can't get out of.
Not just assume
How
he
can
was
you know the distance of something that if you don't even know if it's tangible?
We can just calculate it into existence. We can assume that Venus is the same size as Earth, and we can assume that Earth has got a radius that's in 3 dimensions.
But you don't even
applying
know if Venus
Eratosthenes.
is tangible.
I know, but we can assume that it is. Perfectly acceptable. Remember, George Musa said it's perfectly acceptable to assume these things.
Right, so
Might
you're
as well put it in
1350 episodes in and you still don't know the distance to the sun and the flat earth. That's
Oh,
incredible.
why don't
You
you
got it,
tell us?
Nathan.
Why don't you
Hold
tell
on.
us, brain surgeon?
Hold on. How do you calculate an intangible object? How do you triangulate?
We have
an
to assume
intangible
that it's
object?
tangible.
Right.
How do you triangulate an intangible object?
So again, 1350 episodes and you
Answer the
still
question.
don't
Do you
know.
want to get kicked
Answer
out?
the
Hold on,
question.
Anthony. Do you want to get kicked out? Or do you want to answer my question? How do you triangulate?
And why don't you explain it on the flat
Kick him
earth?
out. Gonna kick you out? How do you calculate or measure an intangible object? How can you triangulate it if it's intangible?
How did you prove it's intangible?
Because you can't touch it.
That's the
Evidence
dumbest
for that,
statement
please?
I've ever heard.
Are you thick? You know what intangible means? Clearly not. So, how do you triangulate an intangible object? You can't.
And he can't answer the question because he knows he's cornered.
Right. So, given
No,
that you can't, given that it's unreasonable,
Didn't say
to
how it's intangible.
like you can't touch it. Look up what intangible means. Hello?
Oh my God.
Do you not know what does intangible mean?
Have you tried to touch it?
Sorry, what does intangible mean?
Well, you just said it means you can touch it.
So we can touch it? Maybe we can run a tape measure to it.
Have you tried to touch it?
Sorry, are you now challenging me to go and touch the sun to appease your request for me to measure it when we've pointed out that, number one, we're not claiming to be able to measure it. You can't because it's intangible, but yet there is definitely an assumption from the globe side that if you assume how big Venus is based on an assumed size of a sphere Earth that you've assumed, that you can scale them with Kepler's third law of interplanetary motion. So you get a distance of 93 million miles with a whole string of assumptions. We're not so ludicrous as to make a claim about this, even though you're challenging us to with what's known as a burden of proof reversal fallacy, given that your side of the argument absolutely claims a distance based on a whole string of assumptions.
You assume the sun is intangible.
I don't assume it, I know
Because
it.
we can't demonstrate that we
How
can
do you know it?
touch it.
Because you can't touch it.
Yeah, that's what you said, but you didn't prove it.
Oh, right. I have to prove that you can touch something intangible, do I?
No, you're
But not
just
only is that
assuming
burden
it's
of proof
intangible.
reversal.
I know I am not assuming anything. You, on the globe side, assume its physicality and then triangulate it based on assumptions. So you assume it. I've just pointed out this is a burden of proof reversal fallacy. You ignored me entirely. So now you're going to just do it again. You've only got a couple of tricks in your arsenal, it seems.
I'm asking a question and you're assuming the sun is intangible.
Sorry, I don't make any claim about measuring any distance to the sun. The globe, on the other hand, definitely assuming it's a physical item with an assumed distance based on assumed radii for Venus and Earth.
And you assume it's in.
So I'm not making any claim, but we've got a 93 million mile distance based on a load of assumptions. Me, not making any claim. You're saying you must. You must make a claim. No, we can just pull apart the claim that's based on the assumptions of Venus and Earth having the same radius value and that they are physically tangible items, even though nobody's touched them, to prove the globe side's claim that they are tangible.
Your claim is the sun.
Not making a claim. Not claiming a distance, not saying I can or will measure it. I'm saying it has not been touched. Nobody's showing that it has. But they are also claiming it is tangible. Not my claim. Again, Simon Dan fan. I'm not making this claim. I am detailing your globe claim about your tangible physical item based on an assumption of Venus's radius and Earth's radius and Kepler's third law. Your claim, your assumptions. Me, not making a claim. Pointing out your claim.
Do you know of anyone who tried to touch the sun?
Icarus.
Yeah, but it's a burden of proof
Right,
of
so
he won't have
how
that.
do you demonstrate?
He won't have that. There is a claim being made. We're not making it. So what's he doing? Well, you go and make a claim about it because I want to debunk that. No, we've already got a claim in place. I don't need to make any claims about the sun or its distance. I know for a fact it's intangible. However, your side claims that it is tangible. Therefore, the burden is upon you to prove that you can touch it.
You came on and
And
you
how
said
did you
after all
determine
these
that
shows,
quote
it's
unquote
still
fact
50 to the
that it's
sun.
intangible?
So you
No,
tell us-
the claim is that it is tangible by your side. That is your claim. That is the fifth time. Either you accept that there is absolutely a positive assertion from the globe side, or I kick you out, because I'm not going to sit here and constantly have you insist that I make a claim about this. I don't make one, and I'm not going to have you insist that I make one when there is definitely a positive claim in place. I'm just not the one making it.
You
I
said
agree.
you know it's intangible. That's a positive
Yeah, but
claim.
no one's demonstrated it to be tangible.
If you think that
And-
the sun's tangible, can we see the evidence proving that it's tangible, please?
No. They claim it is tangible, right? That's not me saying, well, it's intangible because I've got to prove that it isn't because I'm making a measurement to it. I'm not. Yeah? Now, the fact that nobody has touched it makes it, by definition, intangible. However, there's a positive claim that you can, and it's got a distance physically. That's not my claim, though, so I don't need to prove a damn thing.
No, yes, you do, because that's like saying I know God doesn't exist.
Sorry, what am I
You say,
claiming?
I don't believe
What am I
it.
claiming? And what does my claim prove, according to you?
You are claiming you know for a fact the sun is intangible. You
And
can
why
only
am I
say you
claiming
don't
that?
believe it
What,
is
what
tangible.
use is that? Why am I claiming that? What use is it to me? What's it supporting? That claim is supporting what exactly?
Your denial of science.
Sorry, you think that I'm making a claim that science isn't real by making a claim that the sun is intangible. What use does this serve for me? Because obviously this is my claim, so there's obviously a point to it, right? I'll answer. There is no point to me making that as a claim. It isn't a claim. It necessitates no proof that I need validating. However, for the fifth time, there is absolutely a positive assertion that we have a distance to the sun based on an assumption of Earth's sphericity, Venus having the same radius value as an assumed spherical Earth, and that distance being scaled with Kepler's third law to give us a tangible physical distance to it. That is a positive claim, not made by me.
Right, so the best thing you can do is say, I don't believe you, but that's not what you're doing. You're saying,
No, I'm not saying I don't believe you. I'm saying the assumption of Venus being the same size as an assumed spherical Earth, based on a dip angle measurement by Alberuni to a physical horizon we debunked, would shit all over this nonsense assertion of an assumed radius giving you scaling distances for this intangible object that's never been touched. So by definition is intangible, in spite of your claim that it's physical and you can measure distance with assumed R values. That's not me saying I don't understand either.
no, but the best thing you can say is, I don't believe it is tangible.
Sorry, it's not a belief. I understand implicitly that you assume are. That's not a belief. It's an understanding of your assumption, not a belief. I don't believe you assume are. You do.
So you're jumping topic again.
No, I'm pointing out you're claiming I have a belief in your claim of physical distances based on my belief in an absolute stone-cold fact that you assume Venus has the same radius as an assumed to be spherical Earth's radius. Those are facts, not my beliefs. Just your rhetoric being pointed out to you and won't be turned into a burden of proof reversal fallacy like I'm making a claim when I detail your nonsense that isn't proven based on physical assumption biases and radius values being assumed for sphere Earths that are also assumed, and then having scaling values applied to all those assumptions to make your claim of a distance to the sun.
Yeah, he's not jumping. You just can't keep up, Ed.
No, he is jumping because we were talking about the sun.
Yeah, no
No,
shit.
you
And I've
just can't
summarised
keep
your
up.
assumptions in their entirety. A few shout-outs. So, Retro Bill, thank you very much indeed for your super chat. He says, "Hi guys, with all the discussion, the sun's rays, can someone please tell me exactly what a ray is? Not a trick, a question." Well, a ray is a conceptual description of something. So there aren't really any sun rays to speak of at all. They're often simulated in computers, though. You might have heard the term ray tracing. This concept that you can recreate what light does within a computer simulation and then track it. But rays aren't really real. They don't really exist. It's an interesting point, Retro Bill. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat. Unicorn Laser Eyes. Another challenge I've been hearing lately. Prove the Earth is not spinning. Yeah, preposterous burden of proof reversal fallacy. An attempt, a flailing attempt, given we're now identifying the cognitive dissonance that is assuming sphericity and turning, and then assuming the turning is negated for the drift that's supposed to prove it's real by a lack of drift and conservation of angular momentum when describing linear momentum and its speed changes on a presupposed sphere Earth. Indeed, Unicorn Laser Eyes, thank you very much indeed for the super chat. Godzilla37 says, "A ray is my neighbour down the street." No, that is just Ray, as opposed to a Ray. But thank you very much for the super chat, Godzilla. It was worth it just for comedic effect. Did you want to...
my
I've got your hotspot
understanding of
picture
that-
up, by the way, 10th.
Okay.
You're a rumpus, Adam.
It's all right. I kept trying. I thought he'd finish, but I was going to say a ray to me, because I looked. Obviously, you go back to the old 50s B movies. It's a colloquial term, but actually, when it was applied to science back in the 50s, we had things like cosmic rays, and they basically it meant this thing we didn't know what it meant, what it was. It didn't imply an understanding, because when they did figure out what cosmic rays were, they realised they were particles. So to me, it's always a colloquial term that kind of implies a mystery to something that you don't know what it is. But what it doesn't do is give a definition. If anything, it shows a lack of understanding.
I see sun rays, though.
Colloquially, yeah. So it's how we envisage it, isn't it? It's something that we envisage. It's not an understanding. It's what we perceive.
You are a moron. Geometric rays are a fundamental part of geometric optics, and Nathan, you are making a claim.
So
You're
what we
claiming that it's
perceive,
not
Rumpus,
possible
is
to
what I
touch the
said,
sun.
isn't it?
Another
That
brain
is a
surgeon.
claim, you moron.
So who's touched
Check
the sun?
Master B.
So who's
Nathan.
touched the sun?
No, it
Time out.
doesn't
You
need
came
to
on
have
calling
someone have
somebody a
touched it.
moron, then
Let me
you're
get
gonna
it
be
straight.
for that.
My claim is that nobody's touched the sun. I ask who's touched the sun, and your answer is nobody needs to touch it. Right, so if nobody's touched it, it is by definition intangible then.
Not tangible. You claimed it was intangible, which is
But nobody needs to touch it to prove it is tangible, according to you, you double-speaking fundy.
mountaintop. There are no doubt some mountaintops in.
That's not the sun, though, is it? Let's make a false comparison with something we know is physical, like a mountaintop.
Does that make
That
it
we can
intangible,
touch?
Nathan? Because
Sorry, touching it would make it tangible. Who's touched the sun? Well, we don't need to, right?
you keep on over talking me. I can't over. You keep on over talking me.
Suck my balls. How's it taste? I asked who's touched the sun. Your response, heard clearly for the audience, nobody needs to touch it. How do my balls taste?
Make a mountaintop that's not.
Mountaintop's not the sun. So I don't give a shit about your intangible or tangible comparison with something I know is tangible, like a mountaintop. Because the sun, I ask who's touched it, you say doesn't need to be touched. End of your time in this argument.
If there's a mountaintop...
yeah, get angry for me too. Because that's what's going to happen every time you come here. You're going to get annoyed with me as I absolutely annihilate your claim by simply asking you who's touched the sun and you telling me nobody needs to touch it.
Tangible. If there is a mountaintop somewhere...
That's not the sun, though, is it? I mean, we're talking about the sun. I know you need to take it to something we know is tangible to make your comparison. But I asked who's touched the sun. Plenty of people have touched mountaintops, so I'm not going to ask that about that now, am I? But I've asked who's touched the sun, and you've already told us. Nobody needs to.
Mountaintop that has not yet been touched. Does that make it intangible?
Sorry, has the sun been touched? Who's touched it?
No, we'll do my question first, because we can understand...
Oh, well, I asked my question first, and you answered nobody needs to touch it. We heard you, but maybe we could just brush past that. No, I'll stick here indefinitely while you Fundy mute every single word that I say, and don't respond to it because you're talking through it. So nobody's touched it. Nobody's verified its tangibility then.
Been touched. Does that make it intangible?
Sorry, asking me about something else that hasn't been touched isn't talking about the sun and whether or not that's been touched now, is it? That's just another false comparison you're trying to draw.
But if it can be touched, Nathan...
If it can be touched, so we're going to assume it's tangible. Yeah, that's not going to fly either, dickhead.
You're assuming it's not tangible.
So you're assuming that it is because you're the one making a claim about a distance being measurable to it. Me, on the other hand, I don't need to claim tangibility of the sun because I make no claims about it and it serves no purpose. You, on the other hand, claim it is tangible. And I'm saying, who's touched it? And you're saying, well, we don't need to claim it's tangible. If it's tangible, begging the question.
You are a moron.
And now you're on to the ad homs. I'm a moron, am I? Well, all I asked was whether or not someone had touched it, and you told me it doesn't need to be touched, ending your argument, annihilating your position, destroying your claim of physicality.
If I haven't touched something...
If you haven't, then it's intangible, if it's the sun, because nobody's touched it. Of course, you could make a comparison to something else.
It. So you are a moron.
So it's back to the ad homs. No, the sun's intangible, and you're claiming physicality and distance based on assumptions of our values for Venus and Earth. So it doesn't really matter what you say, no one's touching it. And when I ask who has, you say it doesn't matter.
You are a stupid moron.
Right, your time over. Bye-bye. Yeah, I don't mind that when it descends into non-stop ad homs, you can just get lost. Bye-bye. See you later. I've won. Who's touched it? We don't need to touch it. Oh, really? Look up intangible. And then tell me that you don't need to actually verify its tangibility when you're assuming all these things about it. Yeah, you do. But you can call me a moron non-stop while I teabag you, because that'll come over really well to the audience. They'll think you've won. No, they won't. They'll know that you telling me it doesn't need to be touched and no one's touched it won't really back your argument of tangibility when you're assuming our values to get assumed distances, to give you scalars. Yeah, that's not going to fly, mate.
I know where he was going with the mountaintop, too.
That's what they got. Call you a moron constantly when you've already won. Who's touched it? They don't need to touch it. I'm really? Okay, just assume it's physical, right? Well, if it's physical, I'll assume it. Yeah, right, okay. Yeah, now just spend the rest of your time calling me a moron, because then the audience will think I'm thick, right? While I pull apart your argument constantly. And you admit that nobody's touching the damn thing? Nobody's measuring it then? No one's verifying its tangibility for your claim of distance at 93 million miles based on Venus having the same R value as Earth, none of which you addressed. You just call me a moron. Yeah, great tactic, Globe. Winner, real winner.
You didn't answer his question, though.
What, for a claim I make? We covered that with you, Ed. I'm not making a claim. Sorry, you're saying I'm claiming it's intangible. To what end? What use is that? Oh, is it because you're claiming it is tangible with your distances? Yeah, that's why.
That wasn't his question, though.
All right, do I give a shit? I'm not making a claim. So if he's got questions for me, what's he questioning me on? I'm not making a claim here.
Yes, you are.
Oh, right, we're back to this shite. No, I'm not. Oh, why? I claim it's intangible. Oh, why? Does that prove we're on a flat plane? Is that why I make that claim? Oh, I don't. It's merely because you're claiming it's in a tangible position that you can measure with assumed values. Yeah, that's why I point out nobody's verified the tangibility you claim.
Yeah,
The mistake Rumpus was making was he was trying to equivocate the mountaintop to the sun. A mountaintop being something we already know is physical and tangible.
Right.
As opposed to the sun.
Yeah, that's right. That's what he needs to do. make it physical at all costs, compare it to things that are physical and verified as such. And then when I ask who's touched it, well, we don't need to. We can just assume it.
Can a light shine without a source?
Sorry, what's this claim you're making? Where'd you get the distance
Can a
to the
light
sun?
shine without
Sorry,
a source,
our question
Nathan?
was distance to the sun. Do you think you're in charge suddenly? How'd you get your distance to the sun? Yeah, we ripped that to part, didn't we? Yeah, just a moment ago. Rumpus didn't save the argument by calling me a moron.
Right, so...
Right. You haven't got a distance to the sun. You assume radius values for Venus and Earth.
Why don't you answer the question?
What question? Distance to the sun? Well, I'm not claiming a measurement to it. You are.
The question was...
Oh, maybe you should turn this into a question you're asking when we're specifically asking how far's the sun when there's a claim of how far it is. No, it's our question that you're not really paying much attention
You're
to
really
and trying to change the
scared of
subject.
this question,
Maybe a bit of
are you?
fundy muting? Yeah, distance to the sun? We've debunked that, mate.
Right,
Ed,
so
get
can
your
a
own shot
light
in your
shine
direction.
without a source?
Who gives a
Nathan?
shit? We've debunked the distance to the sun because the R value, based in the maths that you assume for Venus' size and Earth's size, was based on tangent points to horizons that are no longer physical. We've debunked the 93 million mile distance to the sun. What do you got to say to that, sunshine? Maybe ask me a question about how the sun behaves? Totally irrelevant to the 93 million mile claim distance that we've debunked based on the R value assumption and its non-physical horizon it's utilising to get the measurement. And the Venus assumption? Maybe address some of that, clown.
Right, so can a light shine without a source?
Maybe ask your question. Yeah, we have debunked the distance to the sun. And all you've got is a question for me?
Can a light shine without...
Who cares? The distance to the sun's been debunked.
I'm not talking about any distance.
Oh, we are. We ask daily. We ask fundies like you the distance to the sun. And then we rub it in their faces that we've debunked the R value they assume to get that 93 million mile distance. We rub in their face that their Venus assumption isn't justified and their sphere Earth assumption is debunked with the black swan. You want to know about how light works and how it shines? I couldn't care less. 93 million miles? No, we've debunked that, mate. How does that make you feel as a globe head?
Go take a course in optics.
So, can a light shine without a source, yes or no?
Who cares? You've got a 93 million mile distance to your intangible object claimed to be tangible by you, and it's based on physical assumption bias for lights in the sky and radii assumptions for Venus and Earth. Maybe you'd like to address that crock of crap used to tell kids this outrageous nonsense that assumes physical horizons to get R values. You're not going to address any of that, just ask me about how light shines.
Hasn't the distance changed over the years as well?
Yeah, they can change the scaling values. They don't have to assume Venus is the same size as Earth. They can use anything they like to scale it. In this instance, the current paradigm has Venus assumed to be the same size as Earth to give them those scaling values. Of course, that R value used for Venus and Earth, we've debunked. Maybe Ed would like to ask us how light shines. Maybe you'd like to ask us how stars twinkle?
No, but you're saying the sun is intangible.
No, you're saying it's tangible and you've got a claim measurement to it. It's not my claim. Yeah, maybe for the 5th time you should try and turn this into a claim I make when I point out that nobody's verified your claim of tangibility. That's what I'm pointing out based on your claim and the distance you give for the globe and its assumed radius for Venus and Earth that you're still yet to address. You just need this to be my claim.
No, I wasn't finished yet. Why are you finally muting me?
Sorry, radius debunked. Go.
Doesn't matter if the sun is...
Doesn't matter. Radius debunked doesn't matter, moving on. Yeah, that's why I'm fundy muting you, because I say radius debunked and you say doesn't matter. Yeah, it matters a lot because you assume it for the distance to the sun.
No, Nathan.
Yes. Yes, Ed. You assume the distance to the sun with an R value for a sphere Earth that you assume that's based on a physical geometric horizon being measured by Alberuni and then deriving an R value from dip angle and then transposing that R value onto Venus. Yes, Ed, that is exactly what your heliocentric model makes as an assumption to get the 93 million mile distance. Yes, Ed, that's correct. Your claim, we've debunked it by debunking R.
So can a light shine without a source?
Who cares? We've debunked R. The heliocentric model is dead. Earth curve not represented by the horizon, not capable of deriving an R value to make this assumption. Meanwhile, Ed's worried about the twinkling lights in the sky.
Hey, Ed, has anybody touched that light of yours?
Yeah, has anybody touched these twinkly lights? Maybe it doesn't matter, like Rumpus said.
Why are you so scared?
Get lost,
I
right,
asked
you're
you
getting
a
kicked out.
question.
While I pummel you, you ask me why I'm scared? Why are you so scared to address the R value being debunked? Why would that scare you so much? Why would you need to move on and claim I'm scared?
Why do you mute Discord otherwise?
Sorry, R value, debunked. Why are you so scared of that?
No, we weren't talking about that.
Yeah, we were. Distance to the sun's based on the R value. I very specifically detailed it about 6, maybe 7 times.
No, we were talking about the sun.
No, we weren't. My point's going to be ignored, right? Why are you fundy muting me? Because I put a point to you, you completely ignore it, say we're not talking about that and change the subject. Yeah, but I'll keep it on track and shut you down and say, yeah, we are talking about the R value because it's assumed that Earth's got an R value and that's a claim that the horizon's physical, and we've debunked that. It's also, after that debunked assertion of an Earth with an R value, transposing that debunked R value onto Venus. So it's definitely R values we're talking about. You just don't want to when I'm asking why you're scared of it and are telling us it's not what we're talking about. Well, I've repeated it 7 times. That's a very unusual thing to say. Does the R value debunking with the black swan scare you?
That's a good joke, but can we get back to the sun being tangible?
So that's a hand wave dismissal. Maybe you could just hand wave it as a joke. No joke. R debunked. If the Earth is a sphere radius 3959, then every distance to horizon can be no more than 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. And the black swan destroys that physical limitation of a sphere edge horizon formerly blocking boats and buildings as being way beyond the geometric capabilities of a sphere radius 3959. Therefore, the horizon is not geometric. We're also told, Ed, that we wouldn't expect to see a geometric horizon, yet Al-Biruni gets the R value from a geometric horizon that apparently we're not expected to be able to see.
Yeah, he's dead. Do we have any more housekeeping questions?
Sorry, was it a joke, Ed? Or was it a logical consistency argument that destroys sphere Earth? Maybe hand wave it as a joke again.
So it doesn't matter if the sun is reflected.
So maybe ignore everything I've just said and ask a new question about reflections. Yeah, Ed, and maybe that's why you get shut down as a fundy. Because I'm still on track with the R value you said we weren't talking about. Do you still think we're not talking about R? We are talking about R.
We were still talking about the sun being tangible or not.
Yeah, the distance to it's based on R, Ed. Are you struggling to keep up with the 8th rendition that the R value is based on the distance that you assume, with R for Venus and R for Earth and physical horizon, debunked by the Black Swan and Modus Tollens argument? It wasn't a joke.
Now you're just running to another topic.
Running? What, with a really consistent argument and logical consistency on my side? That's me running, is it? No. That's not what's happening. That's you in denial. It seems you're running from R. It's debunked. Black Swan. Any comment? Why are you running away from it?
Yeah. Are you going to answer the question? Or?
What about R that you're running away from? I haven't got a question for me. It's a question for you about the R that's been debunked with the Black Swan. Maybe it's a joke. It's not. I've pointed it out and repeated it 8 times. So, no, definitely not a joke. R value definitely is debunked. Ed, maybe you could address that instead of projecting your cowardice onto me by running away from this.
I'm not running away from anything. We were still talking about the sun.
Yeah, the distance is based on an assumed R value. Maybe you could address that rather than saying we're not talking about it, which is what you've done 6 times.
No, it wasn't about the distance. It was about...
Oh, was it not? My question about how far is the sun and the claim that it's 93 million miles isn't about the distance question. Yeah, it is. Why are you running away from it? Hey, Ed, without your radius, you have nothing. We all know that. You are a fool, says Godzilla from the Super Chat.
We were talking about
Agreed.
tangible or not.
Yeah, we were talking about R and how you have nothing without this now debunked R
No,
value.
no,
And you're going to fundy mute me and talk through me? What a coward. Yeah, we know you're running away from it and would rather not hear it by talking through me, Ed. Yeah, it's definitely an issue for you because we've debunked
yeah,
R.
so you were running away from my question by switching.
Your question about the distance that you said we're not talking about, or the R value we said we're not talking about. No, that's your projection. You're running away from the debunking of your globe model and projecting that onto me by simultaneously claiming I haven't answered a question when I'm not making a claim about a distance to the sun, which is definitely what we're talking about, and is definitely based on R that we are also definitely talking about. You just keep denying it and running away from it.
Nathan, perhaps now would be a good time to remind the audience why we know the R value is assumed and what the history to knowing that is.
But it's irrelevant to what we were talking about.
It's directly applicable, mate. Do you remember, Nathan? Do you remember how we came across it?
No, topic was the sun being tangible or not the distance, not R, none of that crap.
Yeah, because the globe Earth's got a claim of a tangible distance at 93 million miles. That's a claim that you make. Did you not realise that's based on R?
No.
Maybe it's not about R. Maybe you need to interrupt me while I repeat the same thing for the 9th time. Maybe it's time to chat through that. Maybe you could listen this time, Ed. Let's see if you can cope. So the distance for the tangibility of this sun is based on an R value that's assumed.
And your claim was the sun is not tangible.
Nobody's validated the tangibility for the 93 million miles that's claimed. That's my claim. There you go. I was a bit more specific this time. Rather than just saying it's intangible, I'll make details about why I would state that based on a claim the globe makes of a 93 million mile distance and assumed radius. Nobody's validated that it is tangible.
But you're saying it's not tangible. You said that many times. Where's your evidence? All you can do is say, I don't believe it's tangible.
Hang on, Ed.
Sorry,
You're
it's not
making a
about belief.
positive-
It's about somebody claiming it is tangible. So you say it is. Are you saying that I believe it's not? No, I'm just being told that it is. So therefore, the burden of proof is on the person making the positive assertion. You assert physicality and distance. That's your claim, not mine. But you seem to constantly want to reverse the burden of proof. You've done it 7 times. Not my claim. You need to prove that it is tangible for your 93 million miles. Definitely a claim of tangibility. I'm saying, well, who's touching it to verify that? And when I ask one of your own, Rumpus, who's touched it? Well, we don't have to touch it. All right, but you're claiming a distance measured to its physical point in the sky based on heliocentrism and orbital mechanics and assumptions of R, Ed. That's the 10th time I've said that, isn't it? Maybe I'm running away. Am I running away? Maybe you could address a single one of those points now put to you 10 times. Maybe tell me I'm running away from these points I'm putting to you. Maybe tell me I'm not answering a question. Maybe tell me that I'm making a claim about intangibility of a sun that used by me serves no purpose. Go on, use one of the same tactics again, Ed. It'll seem like you won. Go on.
Well, yeah, you're simply denying the evidence. And
Oh, right. What evidence
say,
is
I
that?
don't believe the
What
evidence.
evidence is that? I know it's based on an assumption of Venus having the same R value. Are you saying I'm denying that evidence? I'm the only one who's put it forward.
You're denying the evidence.
What? That Venus is okay to be assumed to be the same size as Earth? Not denying it. Pointing out it's an assumption, Ed. Maybe pay attention. It's now 11 times.
Yeah, but you're not letting me finish my sentence, so you didn't hear the argument.
Oh, your argument is that I just don't believe, that I just deny. You don't ever actually put my argument back across to me and explain how it's wrong. You just say I'm in denial.
Yeah, because you don't present any evidence.
Yeah, so really you haven't got an argument. You've got a hand-wave dismissal and a denial claim. When I'm not making a positive claim, I'm merely asking you to prove physicality based on your claim of physicality and actual distances, which you've based on assumption.
So you got any evidence for your denial, or
Any evidence of my denial? It's your positive claim. My God, it's absolutely pathetic. This is what you've now got, Fundies. Any evidence of your denial? Oh my God. Yeah. Denying an assumption of an R value for Venus based on a physical geometric sphere edge horizon. There you go. There's the evidence of my denial. How's that taste? Salty. With that, I'll say a huge, massive, enormous thank you first and foremost to both Discord and G Plus panels for making today's live show possible. If you are watching on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Programming streams, however, stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. A massive thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, and all that good stuff. Also, below this video, there is a link to get £50 back for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on either Programming stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!